Hey folks, this is Cindy. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'm here today for another Feature Friday for Concord 9th, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Posie fill-in stamp set and dies. This was a really great stamp and die set. If you're familiar at all with the Blooms fill-in stamp and dies, then you will immediately recognize what this is all about. If you're not, I'm going to take a moment and show you all about it. I did make a few samples. I kind of went all over the place because I didn't really have a plan. I was just simply enjoying all of this for what it was. So here we go. All right, so this is the Posie fill-in stamp set, and as you can see, it has the large stamp in it, and it has areas cut out of it that don't stamp that you can fill in with the separate stamps that are also included in the stamp set. It's a lot of fun. You could shoot for the moon on color combinations. I really enjoy this. You could also color this in with Copic markers or colored pencils if you'd like. This is the die set that goes with it, and these dies are sized to fit these stamps that are in the stamp set. The only ones that don't match are those little sprigs there, the little leaves. Those you actually use separate from the stamps, but the sky is totally the limit here. There's also that large friend die that is included with this, which is so much fun. You could do all sorts of things with that as well. All right, so let's take a look at how this stamp set works. So I have a piece of 80-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I have it right there in my MISTI stamping tool. You don't need to use a stamping tool for this. If you have a large stamp block or anything like that, that would be fine. But I'm going to use my MISTI just in case I need to double stamp this, which I do. But we'll get to that more here in a minute. So I have some temporary adhesive on the back side of that Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I'm adhering it to the inside. Now I have a sheet, a laminated sheet inside my MISTI, so that actually sticks better, but you can secure that any way that you would like. I'm going to place this stamp right over the top of that, and I'm just going to center this the best that I can. You don't necessarily need to do this. You could, off center it. You could do whatever you'd like, but I wanted to do the whole entire panel, so it kind of opened up whatever options I wanted to do to actually finish off my card. So now that I have that stamp where I want it, I can start getting inky, and I'm going to start with my favorite things, black licorice hybrid ink, because I want the pattern behind this to be in black. At this point, I don't really have any plans for any color combinations. Now, I do end up deciding that I'm just going to use all of the inks that I had sitting out in front of me. I just recently worked on a project for another project, and I had a whole bunch of Hero Arts inks sitting out. They were all color coordinated because they actually match some color layering stamps. So I just decided that I'm going to use those. You could use anything you would like, and I will actually have links in the description below as well as over on my blog for these color combinations. So I just inked that up really good. I'm going to stamp it down onto my cardstock, and I'm going to make sure that I'm giving it a decent amount of pressure here because I want to make sure that I get a good impression. I decided I want to go a little bit darker, so I do double stamp that. Now, I take this panel out of my MISTI. I actually did several of these. I took them all out of my MISTI at this point. And I'm going to take a stamp block and I'm going to start stamping these single layers. That first ink was Hero Arts Tide Pool ink with the flower. And because I'm hand stamping this, I'm just going with what I get the first time. Now I'm taking Hero Arts Emerald ink, and sorry about the back of my head, but I really needed to get up over the top of that. And I'm taking the outline and the center of that flower and stamping that on there. And then I'm taking more Emerald ink and I am just filling in with those little tiny sprigs and leaves. And then I am going to stamp the leaves, and I stamped those with Mint Julep. I did 2 panels like this, and again, I will have these colors listed down below. I did not show you all of the panels because it's the same thing for all of them. I just switched up the colors. Now, on these 2, I actually ended up ruining part of them, so I had to take a different route here. I cut off the part that I ruined, and I'm just going to kind of cover that up on my card panel. I do have some Tombow permanent adhesive that I'm going to put on the back of each of these stamped panels, so I can adhere them to my card bases. These are cut at 4¼ inches by 11. I scored them at 5½ inches so I can have top folding note cards. And I'm just going to adhere these stamp panels to the note cards themselves. Once I have those on there, I have a piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock that I had cut down to 4 1/4 inches by 5.5 inches, and then I cut those in a diagonal so it would cover up a portion of each of these stamped panels on my cardstock. I have some fun foam that I have cut to just the inside of these plain panels, and I'm going to take some of this ThermoWeb double-sided adhesive and adhere it to both sides of the foam, and then I adhere those to those plain pieces of foam, and then I set those aside for the time being. So now I have a scrap of Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I want to use that friend die, and I want it to match the colors that I used in one of those stamp panels. So I have Hero Arts Fresh Peach ink, and I'm just going direct to paper with it. I'm just saturating this paper as best that I can. I'm going to take my heat tool and dry it really well, and then I'm going to run it through my Platinum 6 die cut machine and with the friend die. But I'm also going to take some more Neenah Solar White cardstock, just plain, and I'm going to cut those out 2 more times as well. Once I have all of those cut out, I'm going to take 2 layers of the plain white for each of the letters, and I'm going to adhere those together. So I'm going to stack these up. So by the time I have them all adhere together, there's 3 of them in each layer. And then once I have those done, I can start adhering them to my card. Now, you could use some double-sided adhesive on this. You could turn these into stickers. You could use stick-it adhesive, would be awesome for these. For me, it's just easier to use my nouveau adhesive and do it this way. Plus, it gives me just a little bit of wiggle room so I can make sure that I have these lined up really well. If you just wanted a single layer of these letters, that would be fine. I just like the idea of adding a little bit of dimension to the top of this card. So I also want to stamp a sentiment on this as well. So it's actually going to read, "Hello there, friend." The "hello there" is also from the Posie fill-in stamp set, and I'm going to stamp this in W+9 black ink. And right now I just have friend laid out on my card panel, so I know kind of where it's going to sit. I don't have it adhered down because everything is crooked. I just need to get an idea of where I want to stamp that. Once I decide that I know where I want the sentiment to be stamped, I'm going to get out my ink and I'm going to stamp that just using a stamp block. You could definitely put this back into your MISTI stamping tool if you'd like, but I'm pretty confident with the W+9 black ink that I'm going to get a good impression the first time. But if that makes you nervous, then certainly, by all means, put this back in your MISTI and do it that way. Okay, so I sped through quite a bit of that stamping, but really, folks, so this stamp and die set is just so easy to use. And it's not very often that I just go straight up stamping, nothing special. I usually try to find some sort of technique that I can do or some way that I can kind of change it in my own way. But this one, I really just wanted to approach it of how it's intended. You stamp the whole background and the flowers in different colors, and you mix it up and you have fun with it that way. And I really liked the idea of, you know, being able to spruce this up with like the sentiment and the strips of colored cardstock and that kind of thing. I didn't do any heat embossing or anything like that. I did add some Nouveau Aqua Shimmer clear glitter gloss to the little tiny flowers and the leaves on these, but outside of that, I just kept it plain and simple. I liked the idea of being able to use the color combinations, like the Hero Arts color combinations from their color layering stamp sets, because I already knew that all of those colors would go together and it made for some really fun backgrounds. But really, at the end of the day, folks, this whole thing is just so easy to use. I really didn't think I needed to show you a whole lot of that. I really wanted to focus more on pulling them together and finishing these up. So at this point, I am going to start adhering friend to the front of my card panel here, and I'm just eyeballing it. I didn't use a ruler or anything. You probably should, because I'm pretty sure mine are crooked, but I just kind of eyeballed it and made sure that I got it as straight as possible. But I would definitely recommend using a ruler and making sure everything goes on there straight and is lined up nice and neat. Speaking of lining things up, I now need to attach this black strip of cardstock up underneath this panel, and I'm using my Simon Says Stamp grid mat to make sure that I have everything lined up and I have everything has an even amount of space underneath that white cardstock, because you will notice it, the difference between the black and the white. It'll be really noticeable if it's not. So that I did make sure it was nice and straight, and I'm just going to trim off those edges there. pull off the backing paper to that adhesive. I am also going to add just a little bit of my nouveau adhesive to that black strip. You don't have to. It's just something I do to make sure that it's going to stay extra secure. And then that one is good to go. You could add some embellishments to this if you would like. I decided not to. I did... After I'd added the Nouveau Aqua Shimmer to the buds and to the little leaves on the card, I decided that that little friend needed something as well. I made sure that I had a bunch of this in the bristles of my brush here. So when I put it down over the top of this, it's loaded with glitter and sparkle. And I think that finished it off perfectly. You could also take glossy accents if you'd like and cover that up, and that would be cool as well. So for this other one, I'm really going to play up the gray that I have going on. I do have a strip of just cardstock. I had gone direct to paper with Tide Pool ink, and I trimmed that down to a very, very thin strip. And then I'm going to add some Nouveau adhesive to that. And I'm just getting the adhesive on there. Let's be honest. I do make a mess of this, but it gets the job done. So we're going to call it good. And I want this to kind of go just below the edge of that, so it kind of breaks up some of that white space. Now, if I were to do this card again, I would actually trim that stamp panel down just a little bit more, and I would pop that up on foam and then have this white diagonal panel underneath that instead of on top of it. But I think that this probably works out just fine too. So once I have that attached to this panel, I'm just going to trim off the edges here and make sure everything is nice and straight, nice and even, and then I can start adhering that to my panel. But before I do, I'm going to stamp my sentiment on here. Now, I had used a Hero Arts charcoal black ink for the full stamp in the stamp set. And I'm going to use that same color to stamp my sentiment on here. And again, if you're nervous that you're not going to be able to get a good first impression, then I would definitely put this in a stamping tool. However, I know at this point, my stamp is probably good and seasoned. I had actually used it a couple times, so I'm just going to stamp it on there. I put everything together the same way on that card that I did on this one right here, so I'm not going to show you how I do that, but I am going to show you all of the cards I pulled together here. So this is the one that I walked through pulling together with you. This is the one that I just finished. And again, if I were to do this again, I'd put that stamp panel on top. And I'm actually sitting there thinking that exact thing while I'm filming this, but it's fine. I'm still pleased with how it turned out. I think it was still fun and interesting, and I just dig the stamp set. I would like to take a moment at some point and stamp out the outline of these flowers and color these in with Copics. I think that would just be a blast. So had a little bit of technical difficulty there. It was a little buckled, so I was getting that straightened out. All right, so I did do another panel with some other colors. I will have those linked down below. It didn't work out, but I did end up pulling it together with the stamps or the dies that are in the die set, and I will actually talk about that more over on my blog if you're interested in hearing about that card. Now, these three, I had a bunch of extras. I was playing around with color combinations. These were Avery All Pigment inks, and I wanted to throw together some crazy clean and simple cards just for the sake of it. So I did that. I really didn't think that I needed to walk through them all with you because legit, these are super clean and simple. I will however, have a few more details for you about those over on my blog if you're interested in hearing about those. That is it. We're done. We're good to go. This is my last Friday feature for Concord 9th. I had so much fun this month, folks, and I truly hope you enjoyed everything that I had to share with you. Also, be sure to check out ROWENA and Heather as well. I will have them linked in the description below, as well as over on my blog. I hope you enjoyed my cards today. If you did, hit that like button and share it with your friends. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and tap that bell next to the subscribe button so you can receive all future notifications. Thanks again so much for stopping by. Until next time.